Alright, I'm going to show you some swing variations. So this is part of your cardio circuits. These are, I know you don't have kettlebells, but if you did, it would be cool if you did. But they are kind of expensive, so I'm not trying to like twist your arm or anything, but they can be a very you what's the word I'm looking for, versatile tool if you're doing like at home stuff, like those Turkish get ups, for example, that I was doing earlier. They are a lot less awkward. They feel better with a kettlebell as opposed to a dumbbell. Um, Things like snatches and cleans and presses, which aren't things that I've included in your stuff. But things like that are a lot less awkward when you're using kettlebells as opposed to dumbbells. So just something to think about. You know, Christmas isn't too far away. If you're looking to indulge yourself with some fitness stuff, a nice kettlebell could be a pretty good investment. So anyway, I'm going to show you how to do some kettlebell stuff with some dumbbells, to help you get that metabolic conditioning, which is kind of like a hybrid term. It's kind of like you're getting the best of both worlds with a little bit of weightlifting and a little bit of cardio at the same time. Because what you're going to see, what we're doing here, is we're going to be doing kind of explosive type movements, which is kind of what you're doing in cardio. Like if you think about sprinting, that's an explosive type movement. And we're doing it with weight added, basically. So it's kind of like weighted cardio. So I'm going to stop talking about that now, and I'm just going to show you a regular old dumbbell swing. So this is replicating a kettlebell swing, just a regular kettlebell swing, but with a dumbbell. So there's a few different ways you can hold the dumbbell when you're doing this. With a kettlebell, you'd be holding it, there's a ball, like a cannonball, and then there's a handle that comes up, and you'd be holding the handle with the ball right beneath you, okay? With the dumbbell, you're going to be coming in between your legs. So it's really whatever's most comfortable for you. You may, I'm grabbing like this. You might find interlocking your fingers to be a better option. Depending on what type of dumbbell you have, you might could even hold it like this, okay? But either way, what you're gonna do, after you've established your tripod stance and your intra-abdominal pressure, you're gonna let this hang in front of you, lock those arms out. You're going to hinge back at your hips, let the bell come back, and then you're going to snap your hips forward to propel the weight forward. And when the weight comes down, you're catching it with your hips. So I go back with my hips, back, forward, okay? You don't want to try, I'm going to show you as an example, but I might wind up regretting it. You don't want to try to not catch the bell, because number one, you're going to, you're going to give yourself some gender affirming care down there, and number two, you're not going to be able to start your next rep, because your rep starts with the hip hinge. That's how you load your hips and your glutes. So, about your glutes and your hips real quick. They work together. So, a lot of times if you hear me say hips, I'm also talking about glutes, because they're connected. The function of your glutes is, or the main function of your glutes is to, at least when we're talking about the gluteus maximus, which is the biggest glute muscle there is to extend your hips. So right now my hips are flexed. Now they're extended. I have to flex my butt to extend my hips, okay? But when I flex my hips, I lose tension in my butt, all right? So in order to get the glutes to work, we kind of have to load them up, kind of like cocking a gun, right? You got to cock it back, and then when you pull the trigger, bam, okay? So that's what's happening with each rep of your swings, okay? My knees are soft, they're not locked out, but they're also not, bent all the way. This isn't a squat. So what you'll see some people do, actually, what you'll see some people do is you'll see them squat with it. So they'll come down like this, and then when they come up, they don't have any, they didn't load their glutes, so they can't swing the weight. So they're basically just standing up with the weight. And then you'll see them try to do some awkward stuff to like raise it out in front of them because it's supposed to be a swing, right? So you wind up getting a lot of people doing something like this, where they squat and then they shoulder, and like that's all well and good, like you're still working muscles or whatever, but one little slip up and you can really mess your back up like that. So it should look from the side like this. I'm going to lock my elbows, I'm going to hinge back with my hips so that I can explode forward with them, and then I'm going to come back with my hips so that I catch the weight and do my next rep. So boom, 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 butt goes back, butt goes forward, back, forward. All right. So next we'll go into a one-arm dumbbell swing. So your shoulder is a 360-degree joint. You can be neutral, which is in the middle. You can internally rotate. This is also called, this is pronation, and this is internal rotation. So you can internally rotate, you can externally rotate, or supinate your wrists. So when I do one-armed kettlebell swings, I typically go for some internal rotation, because you're gonna have to kind of rotate in order to get maximum effect with your swing, because you're offset. Even though the swing is coming in the middle, you're holding it from the side, so you're offset, which means one side is going to have to work harder than the other, right? So I'm going to have to rotate a little bit to one side. So when I internally rotate like this, if I just stand up straight, look at what's happening. This shoulder is kind of twisting to this side already, and this is the side that I need to generate more force from, because this side is being dragged down by the weight of the dumbbell, okay? So that internal rotation helps sort of align the dumbbell with where it needs to go. If I do external rotation like this, remember, it's on my right side, so my body's already going to want to fall to the right. So this just opens up my arm even more this way and takes me further away from the hip that I need to use. So internal. You'll notice also, and this is why This is probably one reason why a lot of people squat into their swings when they're supposed to be hinging back. You'll probably notice my knees bending and flexing and extending each rep. And I'm straightening my knees, straighten my hips as well. Because remember, your body's a kinetic chain. Everything's connected in one fashion or another. You actually have one muscle. So the front of your thigh, is called your quadriceps, because there's 4 muscles in your quadriceps, and one of those muscles attaches at both the patella and the I think it's the iliac crest, but I could be wrong about that. But there's one muscle in your quadricep that attaches at your knee and at your hip. Okay, so by getting that knee and hip coordination going, it allows you to better target all the muscles in your quads rather than just like, 3 of them. And it also allows just greater activation for your hips, because again, that's a muscle that attaches to your hip. So it's going to be involved with that hip extension, right? So if you can get that knee flexion coordinated with the hips, because your quads are responsible for knee flexion. So if you have one muscle that is a quad muscle that also attaches to the hip, it's going to function with knee flexion and hip flexion. So it's just another way to get more muscles involved if you're able to get that coordination going, all right, without turning it into a squat. So one other thing I'll say about these one-arm swings, part of what I love about them is that you can switch, you can alternate from side to side. You don't have to do them all on one side. Now, it does take a little practice and a little coordination, and there's a couple of different ways you can do it. So you can catch at the top. So you want to, you've heard me say, don't let momentum do the work for you. Don't do momentum, do slow and controlled, blah blah blah. So in this case, momentum is actually something that you want to generate, because this is an explosive movement, like a jump. Okay, when you jump, you do want to do it under control, but you're also trying to generate as much force as quickly as possible, because you only have one opportunity to generate that force off the ground. Whereas something like a bicep curl, you have all this range of motion to control. With a jump, it's just like that. Same thing with the swing. You really only have one, opportunity at the bottom to pop it up, okay? And when you feel like you're sort of approaching the top of the ascent with the swing, is when you want to let it go so you can catch with the other hand. Because theoretically what you're trying to do is you're trying to let it go before it starts traveling down, so that you can catch it while it's still kind of going up, or when it's that 1 second that it's suspended. So it's going to take, it's going to take practice. And it, you may drop it a few times at first. You may feel like a complete idiot at first, but like once you get it down, it's great. All right. So you also might notice that when I was doing it just then, I was flipping the dumbbell over. You don't have to do that. You can just like that. I just find the flip, it's a little more difficult at first, but it's just easier for me to do but you can definitely get used to doing it this way. The other way you can do it is at the bottom. So, and this is not a way that I'm used to, so give me a second. So you're gonna swing, and it's sort of, okay. I guess you kind of have to be neutral in order for this to work. Yeah, neutral, and you come down, and there's like a little hesitation in between each rep. So it's sort of like 1.5 reps. I do a full rep and I do a little baby rep and let go at the top of that little baby rep. So I can start my next one. Okay? Next one that I'm going to show you is a full lateral swing, is what I call it. So again, however you choose to hold the dumbbell is up to you. You can do sort of a baseball bat, you can do fingers interlocked, depending on what kind of dumbbell you have. You can do like this as well. I'm going to show it to you first without the dumbbell. So you're going to start on one side, swing just like that. All right. Hips are naturally going to rotate. You're going to need to, the side that you're going to, that hip is going to need to go back to catch the weight and then to load up so that the glutes can rotate and start the next rep. All right. So I'll do fingers interlocked, and the other thing about your hips, when I said go back, I meant they need to open and go back. Okay? So like your hips could go back sort of like, you know, like straight back like this. But that wouldn't be good if you think about it, because you've got this weight coming to this side. You know, you're gonna do something to your back. So your hips need to open and come back. So when I snap my knees along with my hips, right? For one moment, they're square in the middle. Boom. And then they open and come back the other way. All right? So your hips are traveling with your body. So one more time. Fingers interlocked. That's just how I'm choosing to do it for this one. Okay. Skier. All right, so a skier swing is going to be different in two ways than anything else we've done in the video. First way that's going to be different is you're going to be using two implements. Second way that's going to be different is you're going to be swinging on the outside of your body. Well, we actually did just swing on the outside of our body with that last one. So anyway, you can also do this in an offset fashion. I have my two kettlebells that I have are different weights, and I'll do offset skier swings all the time. It's a world of difference when I switch sides and go from, you know, heavy to light and then heavy to light. It's crazy. So try it, try it a few times the regular way, and then maybe try it a few times offset, and see if you can diagnose any imbalances that you have that way. Same principles are going to apply. You're just going to be doing it with a more narrow stance, but you're still going to have your elbows locked out. You're still going to hinge back at your hips with a slight bend in your knee. You're still going to want to optimally be able to snap those knees along with those hips to generate full force. And you're still gonna want to do it explosively enough to generate momentum, okay? Because like I was saying in the earlier part of the video when I was demonstrating the wrong way to do these, you're not lifting with your upper body. That's not what this is. This is not a shoulder raise. So when you run out of momentum, that's it. You don't need to keep on trying to lift the weight after that. This is all hips and core, all right? So feet are closer together for this one. Elbows locked out. Tripod stance, digging into the ground. Hinge back. Boom. From the side. All right, we got two more, and they are pretty much the same thing. Wood chopper and a sumo wood chopper. So wood chopper is going to be kind of like that lateral swing that we did, except instead of just going from hip to hip, we're going to go from hip to opposite shoulder, okay? Still going to be some rotation, so when we are on the descent or in the starting position, this hip, where the weight is at, is going to be externally rotated and back, and then we're going to close that hip off and externally rotate, open up the opposite hip as we come across. There's a couple of different things you can do with your feet. You can plant your feet and just keep them planted, or you can pivot your foot on the side where you start down at. So I'll show you both ways. I'll show you first off without any weight, and this is actually how you may want to start doing these, unless you're already experienced with them. One of the things with these is that doing it with weight is a little bit awkward because it is a large movement and it's also an explosive movement. I personally do not like to do these with dumbbells, but I am going to demonstrate with dumbbell. If you have medicine balls, which I think you said you did, those are kind of ideal for wood choppers. But yeah, I would recommend starting with body weight, which I'm about to show you in a second, and trying to do it as explosively as you possibly can. And this is a topic that I've already covered, but the full body irradiation, trying to create as much full body tension as you can. When you do explosive movements, that's going to be important as well, because as you'll see, this is a move that you can easily lose your balance on, and I'll probably even demonstrate like a bad example of how to do this without any tension to kind of just show you what can happen there. So body weight. So tripod, posterior tilt, pushing down into the ground. I've got everything engaged. My knees are slightly bent. I'm going to clasp my hands, start to one side. So this hip is opening. I'm going back just a little bit. As I come to this side, my hips are going to follow where the weight's at. So, as you can see, like, there's a lot of movement back and forth there. That's why that irradiation, that full body tension is important, because I could have easily at any point just lost balance on one or both of my feet and fallen over. I'll show you with a pivot foot. So that time, I had both of my feet planted the entire time. But you can also pivot the foot of the side that you stand on. Okay? With a dumbbell, and I mean really with any kind of weight, because you have your arms extended all the way out in front of you, the move is gonna be a lot slower. So that tension in your body is gonna become way more important, because like you're twisting your spinal column around. So if you don't engage the muscles around it, like, you know, the bones are going to shear even more, okay? So it's gonna be a lot slower than what I just did. And you can grip the dumbbell however you want. You can do baseball bat, you can do fingers interlocked, you can do on the outside like this. I prefer to do it on the outside like this, but this is kind of a big dumbbell for me to be doing that with. It's not only is it a little heavy, but it's also a little big for my hands. But I'll just show you how that looks like. Okay. And then I'll show you baseball bat. Just like with the swings, I'm not trying to use my arms to like lift the weight up. Like, I am using them to stabilize and to move the weight for the duration of the momentum that I create with my hips. But I'm not actively trying to separately and independently lift with my arms. All right, sumo wood chopper. So we just did that's actually a transverse move is what that's called. There's 3 planes of motion. Sagittal is front and back, frontal is to the sides, and then transverse is twisty. So that was a transverse movement that we just did, the wood chopper. This is going to be a sagittal movement in the middle, sumo. So anything sumo squat, sumo deadlift, whenever you hear sumo in front of a exercise, it just means wide feet. And a lot of times it also means feet externally rotated. So instead of toes forward, toes out, okay? Wide stance, and we're gonna be wood chopping into the middle, all right? So I'm gonna do a baseball bat, and I like to go from bottom up. I just find that better. You can play around and do like from start at the top and go down, but I prefer this way. And this is more like a swing. So you're going to start down here. You're going to hinge with your hips all the way up, catch it, all the way up, catch it, okay, catch it, boom. Press those feet into the ground to generate force. You're probably going to feel it like in here when you're doing it. And if those muscles are not very developed, you're probably going to feel it more on your back. It's probably going to feel very good for your back. So the way to generate that force is to really push with those feet. So again, this may be one that you want to start off with body weight. Start down here. Okay, and really, and again, you may not be able to do it very well at first because you may not have a very well developed rectus femoris, or I don't know, with your soccer background maybe you do, but you know, really try to, even though your legs are facing a different way and they're way wider, still try to get that pop with those knees. You know, and then you can progress to weights. And like I said earlier, I really prefer medicine balls for the wood chopper variations as opposed to the dumbbells. But you know, work with what you got. So that's that. Still got at least 3 more cardio videos to do, but hopefully that gives you a little something that you can, you know, start on at least.